All right, the final of the ranked games this weekend was arguably the biggest Big 12 game of the year. My preseason Big 12 pick to win, beating Dalton's preseason Big 12 pick, and Texas Tech beating Utah 34-10, number 17 Texas Tech over number 16 Utah. Let's go over the highest graded players, starting off with the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Highest graded player was actually the highest graded player was the quarterback, Will Hammond, 96.6. We'll get to him later on because he was outstanding. But Jacob Rodriguez, who Dalton, you'll talk about later, the linebacker, 81.8. A.J. Holmes Jr., the D tackle, 80.6. Bryce Pollock, the cornerback, 79.8. Cameron Dickey, the running back, 78.8. And Jacoby Williams, another running back, 77.1. Let's go over to Utah with their highest grade players in the loss. Their highest grade player was Jonathan Hall, the linebacker, 73.2. Jonah Liaya, the D tackle, 71.5. Elijah Davis, the corner, 68.8. Dallin Bentley, the tight end, 68.7. Ryan Davis, the wide receiver, 68.5. And Devin Dampier with a 54.1 grade at quarterback in the loss. Dolan, what told the story in this win for Texas Tech?
So I think Utah's offense and eventually their entire team just got basically slowly submitted in this game. Because, despite the final score, we went into the fourth quarter of this game and it was 10-3. Right, and then eventually Texas Tech outscored Utah 24-7 in the fourth quarter because honestly Utah's defense was just worn down, and the reason they were worn down is that Utah couldn't create any explosive plays. You look at the explosive plays, Texas Tech had 14 of them, and it was balanced, 7 pass and 7 run. Utah only had 1 explosive play the entire game, 1 pass to Dallin Bentley, their tight end, early in the fourth quarter. They went 3 whole quarters without a single explosive play, run or pass. I mean, they were just getting absolutely nowhere. This Texas Tech defense is for real. This is one of the best defenses in the country all the way around at all 3 levels. They absolutely shut down a Utah offense that in general had been rolling this year, and Utah's got to go back to the drawing board a little bit. Now, there's a couple reasons for this to me. Number one, Utah's offensive line. A team that, and this is the matchup you talked about. This was the matchup of the week, their offensive line against Texas Tech's defensive line. Utah's offensive line, as a unit, 58.6 PFF grade. Not many teams are going to win games like that. Utah especially is not going to win games like that. They need Spencer Fano and this offensive line to be the best unit on the field darn near every week. They were not the best unit on the field. Texas Tech had the horses in the trenches to match them. Number 2, downfield passing, right? And we know Utah can run the ball, but if their offensive line's not run blocking well, then they got to be able to throw it downfield because Devin Dampier wants to take big shots. The one big shot they did get early in the game to Jackson Benny got called back because Spencer Fano had the ineligible man downfield penalty, which was the right call. Otherwise, Devin Dampier, 43.8 passing grade on 10-plus yard throws. Will Hammond, 97.9 passing grade on 10-plus yard throws. Again, a lot of that late in the game. Utah's defense was worn down. He made the throws. Utah could not create explosive plays at all. Texas Tech's defense announced themselves to the world. We had a feeling this might happen maybe, but, with all those transfer guys, you got to get into the big games and see them play together. This was an outstanding game by Texas Tech's defense, and they just absolutely choked out Devin Dampier in this Utah offense.
They really did suffocate Utah in this game. Utah, negative 0.473 EPA per play. That is the worst for Utah in a game since the bowl game against Northwestern in 2023. And a reminder, last year, Utah's offense was 120th in the country in EPA per play with 4 different starting quarterbacks. It was among the 20 worst offenses in college football, and they still did not have a game last year as bad as Utah's offense was yesterday. Utah was negative 0.462 in EPA per run, negative 0.482 in EPA per pass, only 4 yards per play for the Utes. Texas Tech dominated in the trenches, and they had a 75.2 coverage grade behind it too. Utah, like you mentioned, with only a 58.6 offensive line grade. That's their worst since 2023 as well. You just mentioned it, Dalton. If you beat Utah in the trenches, you beat Utah. Utah is a team that's going to want to win through the trenches. If you beat them in the trenches like Texas Tech did, you're going to beat the Utes because it's really the only way I think that Utah is going to win ball games right now is just by dominating you with their offensive line and even with their defensive line too. And Texas Tech really played well offensive line and defensive line and showed why they're the current favorite to win the Big 12 right now.
Yeah, absolutely, and they deserve to be right now. And I know TCU's undefeated; they've looked good also. But I think this right now, you have to say this Texas Tech team is pretty solidly the best team in the Big 12. They proved it. You don't go at Utah winning 34-10.
Yeah.
That's not a thing. That's very rarely a thing. I think only Oregon a couple of years ago was the only other team that did that. I mean, that's just what the effort they put out, and they stayed in the pocket. What I really like with Texas Tech, and I know we were debating this as we were watching the game, like with some of these fourth down calls, I thought this was a fun game for some of the analytics and fourth down calls for this, right? Where it was you're saying, some of these borderlines on 4th and 3, 4th and 4. Go for it. This is what we do now. It's 2025.
That's the math in me, and you're the coach, the former coach,
I'm sitting here going in a 10-3 game, going, punt it away. Yeah. Make this team go 90 yards because they have not proven they can do it yet. Punt it away. It was an old school approach. Joey Maguire understanding what type of game they were. And Joey Maguire, look, he wants to fly downfield and get in these fast-paced, high-scoring games where they can eventually, score 34 points, but do it a lot quicker than they did. This was a great job of understanding the tempo of the game they were in, understanding how well their defense was playing, and forcing turnovers, too. 3 turnovers forced in this game as well. I thought Joey Maguire did a great job coaching it. His coordinators did a great job calling it. The players, everything about this, you could not have drawn up better for Texas Tech and what we project going forward. The only question is involving your most impressive guy here. Ooh, what are we doing at quarterback all of a sudden? Because Baron Morton, I know he got hurt, but he didn't look great when he was in there. And I'm sure they don't want to do the whole – they're going to do the whole like Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning last year, and we got another situation I'll talk about later. Okay, you don't lose your job to injury. But do you when your when the younger kid is the best player on the field in this game? What do you do? I mean, go ahead with Will Hammond, because now I don't know if it's a controversy. I don't know if they'll just go back to Morton, but it's at least something to watch.
It is absolutely a controversy, I think, right now. I would seriously think about starting this kid, Will Hammond, 96.6 PFF grade, like I mentioned before, 13 for 16 for 169 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. Dalton, he threw 16 passes. He had 4 big-time throws. He had a 25% big-time throw rate in this game. He also ran for 61 yards with 5 broken tackles on the ground, too. He's a redshirt freshman that was put in a really, really tough spot as the backup quarterback against a really good defense in one of the toughest road environments in all of college football. Usually, quarterbacks would crumble under that kind of pressure. Will Hammond shined under that kind of pressure. Led the Red Raiders to 24 points in the second half of this game. They had 10 points at halftime. They scored 24 in the second half with Will Hammond. And Dalton, this guy was the number 11 quarterback coming out of high school in 2024. This guy was seen as the future for Texas Tech. After Baron Morton was done, dare I say, he's the future. I also think he's the present of Texas Tech right now, because if you have a team like Texas Tech that is kicking ass offensive line and defensive line, and a young quarterback who is a really talented player too, and Will Hammond, again, a really highly rated recruit coming out of high school, playing like that against that defense in that stadium, Texas Tech not only is a favorite to win the Big 12, we got to start talking about them as a national contender right now if they get quarterback play like that from Will Hammond.
And this is going to be – and Morton was great through their first 3 games against lower competition. But he wasn't spectacular in this game. The 2 interceptions, both of them on pretty inaccurate balls down the field. And I think that, one of the big things that stands out to me with Hammond, he's a better athlete than Morton. Yeah. I think you could immediately see they had a package in for him where he could run the football. Baron Morton's not going to run the football. It's just not – it's not a thing. He's a pocket passer. When he's clean back there, he can make throws. But even yesterday, he wasn't making throws. And the blitzes were getting to him. And the man coverage, the throws weren't precise enough. I think considering the way Morton, and depending on his health, of course, considering the way Morton played in the first 3 games and his experience, they're probably going to go back to him if he's healthy next week.
What would you do? I agree with you. I think they're going to play Baron Morton.
I think a big thing for me, again, Hammond threw the ball. Now he's not going to have a 96 passing grade every week.
No, of course
right?
not. Yeah.
And he's a young kid, right? And that's as high pressure as you can get into and doing it as a starter. But I think the biggest argument for me, for Hammond, is what he actually adds to the run game and the extra dimension. This is an actual read option threat. You saw the quarterback draw and things like that working. He adds one more dimension to the offense than Morton does. And I know Morton's experienced, but we've also seen plenty of Baron Morton. We've seen it. Yes, he will beat the bad teams, and he's done that. There's
a ceiling here with Hammond.
There's a ceiling with Hammond that is different than Morton.
Mm-hmm.
Morton can get the job done, but he didn't look great, I didn't think, in the time that he played in this game. And Hammond looked spectacular. I think this is going to get to be something of a controversy.
I think they can win the Big 12 with Baron Morton. I think they can win the Big 12 and make a serious run with Will Hammond. That's what I'll say.
That's a good argument. That's a good because you've already beaten a team that we thought may be the next best one. And I mean, let's just take a look at their schedule real quick. You've got Houston next week. They should be better than Houston. Kansas, Arizona State's a big one. Oklahoma State. I mean, they've got a lot of winnable games on this schedule, but they're going to be playing some solid defenses. Even Houston's got a pretty good defense in week 6 and going on the road. What do you do if you want to add to this run game, I think especially? And if they're equal as passers, if you think they're equal as passers, you play Hammond because he adds to the run game. That's a big thing for me because the athleticism was a clear difference. When they needed answers on the ground, he was a part of the answer.
So we both like Will Hammond as potentially the new starter. I believe Baron Morton will start, but Texas Tech fans, let us know in the comments below what you would do at quarterback right now because it is a fascinating conversation. A good problem to have for Joey McGuire right now, for sure. Peyton Jansen in the chat earlier said Will Hammond will grade ridiculously high, dead on about
sure
that.
Did.
He also said Jacob Rodriguez is the best linebacker in the country. His PFF grade does not lie, and you said you agree with that too. Jacob Rodriguez was a dominant player.
He was Texas Tech's highest graded player other than Hammond in this game. He is currently the highest graded linebacker in the country. I think a 93.9 run defense grade for the country. He is an absolute stud. I turned to you at the end of the first quarter and I said, oh, he's the best player on the field. For as great as we've talked about this defensive line and David Bailey and Lee Hunter and all these guys up front all summer, but it's great to have a linebacker that cleans up literally everything and makes huge plays. You look in this game alone, 77.4 run defense grade with 4 stops and the big forced fumble that forced a turnover in the first quarter. 80.2 run defense grade, coverage grade. 5 targets he was in coverage. 1 yard allowed. 1 yard. I believe it was 3 catches for 1 yard allowed, 2 stops, and did you see the one-handed interception at the end of the game? He's one of the best linebackers in the country, if not the best right now. He's the highest graded linebacker in the country. And when you have this defensive line that is occupying an opponent's front 5 as much as because you have to put every resource you can into blocking all these defensive linemen they have, Rodriguez has a free run to the football a lot, and he's making everything happen with it. He's an elite football player right now. He's just spectacular.
I would say right now it's early, but I would say he's the Butkus Award favorite.
Yeah, I'm in on that. Yep. I mean, this defense. And let's shout out the secondary, too.
Oh, incredible.
Bryce Pollock. Look at the turnaround in the secondary from what it was last year.
That held them back last year, and it is a strength this year.
I mean, Bryce Pollock, Cole Wisniewski. I mean, these guys on the back end are making plays in the secondary. This is a 3-layer defense. This is one of the best defenses in the country.
Yeah.
Right? And that defensive line, we're going to talk about another one in a little bit here that's probably the best because they might have the best defensive player in the country. Mm-hmm. You could argue this Texas Tech defensive line, I think, is the second best in the country.
I would argue that. They were the highest graded entering it, but obviously they played a soft schedule so far. But if you dominate an offensive line like Utah, which I thought was and is really one of the best O-lines in the country like that, Texas Tech absolutely has one of the best D-lines in the country. But a really impressive win for the Red Raiders, and they're now the new favorite to win the Big 12 with a 34-10 victory over Utah.